In this video, I will show you how to use the Nitro perspective tools to correct alignment issues. Perspective is a common problem in images. They most often occur when shooting at an angle to the subject, for example, a tall building or a painting in a gallery. Nitro now has an advanced perspective tool that can correct difficult cases without overly cropping or distorting the image. I will be using the Mac for this, but the same tools are available for Nitro for iPad and iPhone. At the end, I'll show you the mobile interface. Originally, Nitro's perspective was a separate adjustment from crop, but now the two are combined. I did that because correcting perspective often requires cropping the image as well as straightening it, so it's easier to do all of that in a single tool. Here is the old layout of the adjustments. You can see how crop and perspective are listed separately, and unless you configure the order of the adjustments, they're actually quite far apart in the editing interface. Here is the new combined interface. This image was adjusted in an older version of Nitro. The first thing to know is that perspective applied in older versions of Nitro are not affected. While the interface will still change, the old algorithms will be used, so there will be no change to your images. However, if you want to take advantage of the new algorithms, reset the adjustment using the arrow like this. The interface will look mostly the same, but the underlying math will be different and better, as I will show you. That said, I won't spend any more time on the older algorithms. In the new interface, there are only three tools at the top: crop, straighten, and perspective. In the next row are the rotation and flip buttons. The crop and straighten tools are basically unchanged, as you can see here. You can drag out a box to crop, and you can also precisely enter the origin and size of the crop, as well as changing the aspect ratio. Straighten has both a slider and also a tool which lets you drag out a line. By the way, if you have presets that include perspective, they are still supported. The perspective data will be moved into the crop adjustment, and you'll simply see crop whenever you see the list of adjustments in the preset interface. Okay, I'll reset the adjustment again so we can look at perspective. If you're going to adjust perspective, then it's best to start there, then straighten the image, and then finally crop. The easiest way to correct perspective is to use the sliders. There's one for vertical and one for horizontal. Sometimes the sliders affect the aspect ratio. You can correct that using a new slider in the interface called stretch. The next step is straightening. If you need more working space to see the image and to crop it, then drag the scale slider. That will give you a black area that you can use to crop. Let's look at another example. Once again, I can use the sliders to correct this image. And then I use the scale slider to get more of the image back for cropping. I mentioned a new advanced perspective tool. It can correct problems that the sliders simply cannot, and it does a much better job than the original perspective tool. Looking at this image here, I might try to use the sliders, but I'm just not going to get the effect that I'm going for. In cases like this, I'll use the tool. To use it, pick the third tool in crop and perspective. You'll see a menu appear with some different modes. Four corners is the one you'd usually want to use as your first try. It handles most cases. The other ones are for some special cases, which I'll show you later. I can click to place points, or I can drag. I can also move points after I place them. I can also zoom in if necessary. Where you place the points matters, so be careful and generally don't try to outsmart the algorithm. After I place the points, I click the check mark, and the image is corrected. As you can see, the frame might be a little square, so I can use that stretch slider again, slightly adjust it. And then if I want to, I can straighten or crop the image to get exactly the portion that I want. Here's another example, and one where you can use the other perspective modes. In this case, I'm going to choose vertical lines. That's because this is a more complicated scene, and you want to correct very different portions of the image. So I'm going to draw a line here, and I'm going to draw a line over here, let's see. And then I'm going to correct it. Again, I can stretch or scale or whatever I need to do. After I've corrected the image using the perspective tool, I can also then use the vertical and horizontal sliders if I want to do an additional correction. That's usually not necessary, but it's good to have the option. The interface on the iPad looks pretty much the same as it does on the Mac. Here's how it looks on an iPhone. The controls are placed slightly differently, but the basic approach is the same. That's it. I hope this video helps you correct perspective issues in your images. Thanks for watching.